So after getting into McGrath at about 2:30, I had, like I said, I had a couple of bowls of pasta, had a couple of beers, a little bit of chocolate as well. You always get these sort of cravings for sugar when you're doing these things. And all the lodging was occupied by the other racers that had either finished the 350 or were just moving a bit quicker than me and got there and took the bedding before I could get there. So the options were to sleep in sort of like this lounge room common area, but the advice was not to sleep there because the racers will get up early in the morning, have breakfast and might disturb me. So just next to where the lodging was like a large room, which was kind of a make-do community hall. And they said you can sleep up in there and then you won't be disturbed. So I went up there, it was nice and dark, laid out my sleeping bag, my mattress or my sort of inflatable mat and went to sleep. So it was probably around about 3 o'clock, I suppose, by the time I got to sleep. And I was sleeping pretty well, but unbeknownst to me was that this area, or community centre, was also the village coffee shop. So at about 5:30, I could hear people talk about coffee beans and grinding coffee beans. And then by about 6 o'clock, they started grinding their coffee beans. So I'd kind of got around 3 hours sleep. It was too hard to sleep through the grinding as much as I tried. They turned the lights on, and this is their business, so I wasn't too concerned about interfering with their business, or I was trying not to interfere with their business, but it was not ideal for recovery for me. Upside was I had nice fresh coffee at about 6:30 when I got up, and then from there was no point in going back to sleep. There was no rooms available, so I just started tinkering with my kit. So I went and had another good breakfast, some more coffee. I spoke to a few of the other racers because it was an opportunity to sort of chill and socialise. I did notice a couple of the other races that were going on were sort of got their gear packed and they were out of there by about 9 o'clock sort of thing. In hindsight, I probably should have just got up, sorted myself a little quicker and got out of there. But I was kind of ginning around a little bit because I had allowed a fair bit of time at the McGrath checkpoint. So kind of got things organised, made sure that a couple of things that weren't quite working properly I'd fixed up, redid my whole polk, made sure that the inReach I was using was functioning properly, so I sent a couple of messages, got a couple back, because from here it gets pretty isolated, so it's a completely different race almost from this point on. So from there, that took me up to about lunch, so I had a good lunch. I went to have a bit of a lay down, but that wasn't going to happen, so I just got set and I took off just after lunch. So I got out, the trail was pretty good from then on. Fairly flat, and then it went over a bit of a rise sort of thing. So I went up into a sort of a slight hilly area, and I started to get really tired because I hadn't slept. I was kind of really drained that day. It almost felt like a nothing day. I was climbing up into these hills, and then on the other side, thankfully, were some really nice, good downhill sections that I could basically sit on the polk and slide down the hills. So it was probably maybe a mile or two of sort of intermittent sliding where I was able to slide down the hills, and it was somewhat enjoyable. You just got to be a little bit careful doing these things because if you do smash your polk, then you've got to walk another 650 or so. You got to walk another 650 miles with a polk that's not quite functioning properly. So I kind of kept going, got down the other side of the hills, and then it flattened out a little bit and went onto a river that went up and towards a village that we weren't allowed to enter. So it was kind of around about 10:30, 11 o'clock when I sort of went across the front of this village. And they put in a new trail, so there was a little bit of overflow in that, and it was really soft going, so I had to be really careful going through there that I didn't get overflow coming over my shoes and into my socks because I didn't want wet feet. So I kind of negotiated that. From there, it sort of started going up a hill, and I didn't realise how big the climb was coming out of this village, so it kind of went on forever, to be honest, and it was a really steep climb. So I'm dragging my polk up this hill. Honestly, I felt like shit because I hadn't slept. Sort of, my mind was just in this really odd space where there wasn't much function going on. I just wanted to get to the top of this hill, find somewhere where it was flat, I could lay out my gear and go to sleep. So at this time, a couple of the other racers who were moving about the same pace as me kind of started catching up because I was just going really slow because I was just in such a high level of fatigue. They sort of caught up, stopped and chatted for them for a little bit. And they were in the same sort of place as well. They were pretty tired because they'd slept in the same place. They'd been interrupted by the same sort of noise. And we're just kind of looking forward to getting this day done, getting some rest, and then getting on with a new day. So eventually got to a point in the climb where on this mountain where it started flattening out a little bit. So I found a spot off to the side of the trail where there was a little bit of shelter from the wind. Flattened down an area as I always do. Sort of laid out my mat, my sleeping bag, set everything up, went through my normal routine of looking after my feet, making sure everything was good to go. Stuff I needed in there, I put in there. And then I kind of set myself up and went off to sleep. So because I left so late, I'd only covered around 21 miles, but it was kind of the bare minimum I needed to set myself up for the next day. Where in hindsight, what I should have done was left a lot earlier so that I'd punch through to the next village that was about 18 miles away. I could have slept there, and that would have set me up to hit a couple of the safety cabins further up and get me into Cripple at a much better time. But as it was, I'm playing the hand that I've dealt myself, so kind of doing the best I can, trying to get a good sleep here and set myself up so that I can make the most of the next day. So sort of one of the things I learned was you just deal with the bad, take it as it is, and then set yourself up so you can make the most of the good. So overall, it was kind of a nothing day for me, but at the end I got it done and I was still moving forward, which is all I could really ask of myself.